Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content.
It's official. It's official. Yeah. Yeah. We're on free agency alert. The start of the new league year is days away. As we know, that means the Browns are allowed to negotiate and contact free agents and sign contracts officially. The 2026 Cleveland Browns, the construction of the 2026 Cleveland Browns is no longer in the speculative zone and now actually underway, which means that we have some signings to talk about and some players that the Browns let walk to talk about. First, let's talk about who they let walk. Devin Bush, the linebacker out of Michigan that we signed off a veteran minimum a couple of years ago. On one hand, we saw Devin Bush make such good leaps over the last couple of years that it is hard to let him go. It reminds me a lot of the last Sam linebacker that the Browns let walk, which is Sione Takitaki. Remember, he started coming into his own around 2020, 2021, and did a really good job for the Cleveland Browns, and then the Browns let him walk. I think they have told us internally they feel like that's a easy position to replace. Sione Takitaki, remember when he was available, up for free agency, they weren't really interested in bringing him back at any money. Ended up replacing him by bringing in Devin Bush. Devin Bush comes in, fills that role, and takes over for that role. And then Devin Bush is up for bigger money. And now there's going to probably be a new part to the factory, right? A new guy that they give a vet minimum to, or maybe it's somebody on the roster. But all indications are that the Browns have confidence in their ability to replace that position. And to be fair to Tarver and the Cleveland Browns, over the last 5 years, they have demonstrated that that is a position that is not a problem for them to be able to replace. So that's it for Devin Bush. He has signed a contract with, what team did he ended up signing with? Let me double check that. Because I thought he was going to sign with the Cowboys, but he ended up signing with somebody else. Yeah, he signed with the Bears. So the Bears signed Devin Bush. The Browns feel confident in their ability to replace him. Some other players came off the market that have been on the Browns' radar, right? Or at least you would hope, or have been on the Browns' radar. Malik Willis, who I've kind of talked about, I was not in on the idea of giving this dude like $25 million a year to play quarterback when we don't have much information on him. I didn't think that was a leap for the Browns to take. Maybe another team, but not the Cleveland Browns. And the Miami Dolphins came in and gave him 22 and a half over 2 years guaranteed. And then there's that third year that's non-guaranteed. So yeah, I don't think the Browns ever were seriously in the Malik Willis sweepstakes. I don't see that as making sense for them. They need certainty at the quarterback position. And if they're not going to get certainty at the quarterback position, they shouldn't be paying a premium for it. The Browns aren't a team that could pay a premium for uncertainty when they have plenty of uncertainty on the roster. They have uncertainty with Deshaun Watson. They have uncertainty with Shedeur Sanders. They have uncertainty with Dylan Gabriel. There's enough uncertainty here that we don't have to pay a premium for it. If the Browns were to pay a premium for anything at quarterback, it would be certainty there. I think they'd be more than willing to use a day 3 pick to bring in somebody who's unproven. But $22.5 million when they still have Watson's cash on the books and they're working out of cash budgets for each position, it's just not really going to make sense for them. So that's another thing that happened. Isaiah Likely signed with the Ravens. He's no longer available. Browns might go in the direction of Charlie Kohler. And then there's Cade Mays, a guy I've been pointing out that made some sense. The Lions ended up signing him to play center for him. I don't know exactly what the money was for him, but that was the signing there. Cade Mays got signed. And then Tyler Lindenbaum signed a 3-year, $81 million deal that includes $60 million guaranteed. So the way I understand this is probably going to be $30 million a year as far as what goes in the pocket of Tyler Lindenbaum to play for the Las Vegas Raiders. So yeah. I thought once that number went above 18 for Tyler Lindenbaum, the Browns were going to be out. The Browns under Andrew Berry have done a good job of not overpaying for free agents, right? And I think that trend's going to continue. The Browns aren't going to pay more for a free agent than what they value that free agent internally. They're not going to say, well, Tyler Linderbaum, we think he's a $15 million player, but we're going to pay him 25. That's not how that's going to work here. But also another thing that happened, Alec Pierce signed like a $28 million deal per year, which was crazy money. It looks like the Buccaneers are the Mike Evans is going to leave the Buccaneers and sign with the San Francisco 49ers. Another vet wide receiver. I thought that would be the best case scenario for the Browns, but it didn't look like that was something that they were going to be able to get done. The Browns have been linked to Caden Ellis, but they did actually make a move in signing Zion Johnson. Now, this is a part of something I've talked about since the end of the year. The Browns had to get 2 starters at least in free agency, right? Like in order to rebuild this offensive line and to put an appropriate amount of pressure on the draft, but not a disproportionate amount of pressure on the draft, the Browns had to get 2 starters in free agency, right? They could not go into the draft with 5 holes on their offensive line. They had to get 2. The reason 2 is important is because if you look at the roster right now, technically speaking, you could play a game with what you have, right? Joe Bitonio might come back, but you could kick somebody, from tackle to guard, you can kick a guy inside who played tackle last year, like a KT Leviston, for example, and have him be where Joel is. But as right now, Joe hasn't officially retired yet. So you got Joel at left guard. You can put Zion Johnson at right guard. Then you have Luke Whippler, penciled in, I would say, at center. And then Titus Howard in Penn at right tackle. And you can see that's a complete. Oh, and DeJuan Jones probably a left tackle, or you could flip Titus and DeJuan however you want to flip them. But 2 tackles, 2 guards, 2 centers that have played NFL games and started in NFL games. So technically speaking, you're fine at offensive line, but I still think that they're going to leave the draft with at least 2, maybe 3 offensive linemen. I think it would be perfectly reasonable to draft a center, to go at another guard, and to draft a tackle in the first round. I think now they're set up perfectly to do that because they went after 2 starting positions with the offensive line. Now let's talk about Zion Johnson, because he is somebody that I think the Browns are betting more on his upside over the next couple of years to outperform his current contract than for somebody who they're paying for because of his previous work, which is to say that Zion's resume before this point is a bit up and down, right? He hasn't been amazing in Los Angeles, and that's why he's 26 years old, a former first-round pick and available, right? Like, you don't usually become available at 26 when you were a former first-round 17th selection if you had a perfect background, right? Like, there are some holes there. He's inconsistent. Not the best pass protector in the world, a solid run blocker, has been moved around the offensive line. I thought he found his stability in his game over the last 8 weeks of the season at left guard. I also want to point out that he's been super durable, right? At least this season he was super durable, played over 1,000 snaps for the Los Angeles Chargers. So there's that. There's the Harbaugh connection now that we have Todd Monken, who clearly has pledged his allegiances to Harbaugh world, right? He talks really, really highly of John Harbaugh and the Harbaughs in general. And he's clearly connected to that world. If you look at who he's brought in and who he's been competing for in free agency, He's clearly connected there. Zion comes from hardball world. Apparently his they rave about him as far as his personality goes. And he's somebody that the Browns think, hey, it didn't work out at his first stop. Maybe the second stop, we can teach him some things, get him better. And then, in a couple of years, we're saying to ourselves, wow, we really got a deal. Kind of like a Wyatt Teller situation where the Browns traded for Wyatt Teller on a steep discount because he wasn't performing well for a second round pick. And then, they develop Wyatt Teller with their offensive line staff that they feel very good about. And then he turns into one of the best guards in football. Maybe they're thinking Zion can have the same kind of outcome where it's like, yeah, it didn't work out with the Chargers. We sign you to a mid-level guard deal, knowing that you're a former first-round pick, knowing that you're only 26 years old. And the upshot is, for the next 3 years, we can get you to a place to where you can outperform that contract easily. So that's kind of the play here with Zion. It's not about what he's done before. It's about what they think he can do going forward. This is a projection signing, right? They're signing this guy in hopes that he can outplay his pay. They did a similar thing with Jerry Jeudy, and it worked out. I would still say Jerry Jeudy outperforms his current contract number, even though people aren't the most happy with him. Like, he got like 700 yards last year. 700 yards in the open market right now is going for 18 to $25 million. I think Jerry Jeudy's contract was like 16, 17 a year. So he's outperforming his contract number even in a down year. And in the year prior, he obviously outperformed that contract number. So this is a similar play here, right? I would say this is like the Jerry Jeudy play for them. Like, it's different change of scenery, not really trading for him, but just a former first round pick that they believe in. They think they can put him in the right system, put him in the right fit, get the right coaches around him, and get way more out of him than the team that previously had him got out of him. But that's so far what the Cleveland Browns have done in free agency. Obviously, if the Browns do more, which they probably will, I think the Browns are more set up to trade than to sign free agents, in my opinion. The reason I think that is if you look at how the Browns went about structuring the money, right? Because if you're going to sign free agents, you don't really need to clear a ton of cap space before you sign a ton of free agents. You can maneuver the first year to where it doesn't hit that hard. Very often teams will do this. So you don't have to do a mass clearing of cap space in the Brown situation to sign free agents. So when they did the restructures of Denzel Ward and Deshaun Watson this early, right, to free up all of their available cap space. And if you pay attention to the Browns, even in years where they spend heavily in free agency, they wait until July sometimes to free up that cap space. And the reason that is because if that cap space is not there, when they're negotiating with agents, it's a lot easier because agents can't ask for money that's not there yet because the Browns haven't opened it up. But if the Browns are sitting there with $30 million in cap space, then those teams can feel like, hey, we can ask for more money because you got it. You know what I mean? That's kind of the philosophy there to why they sometimes hold off on these restructures. We talked about this plenty of times over the last couple of years, but the Browns did it very differently this year under the same management, right? Where Andrew Berry used to do these things in July, now he's doing them in March. Why did he do them in March? I think it's because he wants to trade for somebody. I think it's because if he makes a big move, it's going to be a trade. I don't know if he's going to be able to successfully bring in somebody via trade, but I think that is the strategy. And if you look at how the Browns go about their big acquisitions, for better or worse, in the Andrew Berry era, they've always been throughout trades, right? Amari Cooper, we just talked about Jerry Jeudy. The biggest things, the most status quo shifting things they've done have been trades. They feel like that's a better way to get better value than the open market, which can get pretty messy. I mean, $28 million for Alec Pierce, who has never, one time gotten over 1,000 yards and barely got over 1,000 yards. Like, it's ridiculous money. Tyler Linderbaum, who I think has gotten a little overrated by the fact that he was available. But this is a center that the Ravens didn't think highly enough to give a fifth-year option to, right? Like, he's a 26-year-old free agent too, right? He didn't get a fifth-year option. He didn't get a franchise tag from him. They did not think highly of enough of him to do that. But he gets 22. I mean, like just ridiculous money to play center, which look, it's not an easy position to play, but it's been proven that you can spend a lot less money at center and get a starting center. Like teams are spending like $10 million for guys who have proven to be good starters at the position per year. The idea of paying somebody 22, I mean, like you got to be Alex Mack. And I don't think Tyler Linderbaum is Alex Mack enough to justify that, right? Like that's kind of the problem with the free agent market. Everybody gets overpaid. So I think the Browns want to avoid that. And they've showed a tendency to avoid that by circumventing the market by trading and then extending. This is what they did with Titus Howard just recently, right? And when you trade for a contract, the reason why how they structured the money is important here. I'm sorry it took me so long to get to this point, but the reason why how they structured the money is important is because when you bring in salary in a trade, you can't manipulate that to where it's less than what it's actually going to be in that first year. You have to have that money in place. You can clear up the cap space after the trade is finalized, but to get the trade finalized, you have to have that money there, right? So if you're going to trade for somebody whose cap number is $30 million, you need $30 million in cap space, even if you plan to restructure that person, right? So in order to even get to that, you need to have that money there, which is why I think the Browns structured everything the way that they did it this year, because I think they're thinking that if we're going to make a big splash, it's not really going to be with free agent money. It's going to be with trades. So that's my inkling. I think you should be having your ear out for trades, specifically for wide receiver, because I do think they're done on the offensive line. I think their goal was to get 2 starters on the offensive line. If Joe wants to come back, they'll extend him. And then there's 3, technically. And then handle the rest in the draft. And then get a wide receiver. I think they're moving on to the wide receiver part of this. They're going to get a linebacker, but I don't expect that to be a giant deal for a linebacker. Again, they don't really value the Sam position that much. They think they can replace it easily, and they've demonstrated that they can replace it easily. Maybe they get another corner, but I think the next big money move they make is probably going to be a trade. That's just my guess. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Have a great day. Have a even better night. Peace.